In this exercise, we're given a list of accounts, and we're supposed to put together a cost of goods manufacturing statement, which looks something like the one I've just put on the screen here. So we'll start with each of these pieces, and we will see if we can come up with an answer. So the first thing we're going to do is look at a direct materials used calculation. From this list of items, we'll begin with the raw materials beginning inventory of 13,000. It's right there. We'll add raw material purchases of 35,000, which is down at the bottom here. And these two added together, beginning inventory plus raw material purchases, gives us raw materials available of 48,000. Subtract off ending raw materials inventory of 13,100, which is right there, and we end up with raw materials used. So raw materials used is the first piece that goes on this manufacturing statement, 34,900. Then direct labor is a one-line item, and it's going to be $20,000, and you can find it right up near the top of those list of accounts. And then the last item would be a total factory overhead cost, which there'll be several pieces of factory overhead in these list of accounts. So the calculation for that would be rental cost of factory equipment, which is 29,000. And it's important to understand that the very first item here of factory overhead is what we want to use first. You can get these problems right, and if you get the order of which they list, for example, overhead, even though you got all the total overhead right, if you don't get it in the order from the top down that they listed, you're not going to get full credit. So the first overhead item in this list would be rental cost of factory equipment. The next item that's overhead in this list would be factory utilities, which is on down here, $15,000. The next item would be factory supplies used of $12,200, and indirect labor is the next factory overhead item, $3,250. Then we have factory repairs on factory equipment, which would be next, which would be $6,780. And this gives us total overhead cost of $66,230, which is the third item on this list, $66,230. And every manufacturer has three different components of its manufacturing operation. It has materials, which in this case is $34,900, direct labor, which is $20,000, and overhead, which is everything else that's going on inside the factory, which is $66,230. And you add these three together and you get something called total manufacturing costs for the period, which would be in this case $121,130. Then you want to add the beginning work in process inventory, which was $21,500 from this list up here, because it assumed that whenever you came in on the new year on January 1 of the year 2005, the first thing you did was to use up this goods in process inventory that you had from the previous accounting period, which was 12/31/2004. So you come in on January 1st and you start using these items that weren't finished from the last accounting year, and you add those into this total manufacturing cost for the period to come up with something called total cost of goods in process, which is $142,630. Then at the end of 12/31/2005, you subtract off the goods in process that weren't finished on this in this accounting period to come up with which is $26,000, which is on this list of accounts up here. And when you take the total cost of goods in process, subtracting out the ending goods in process inventory, you get what we're looking for, which is the cost of goods manufactured, $116,630. Next part of this problem, which is part 2, they want you to put together a cost of goods sold calculation from this information, and we would start with beginning finished goods inventory, which is $17,000 from our list above here. Add the cost of goods manufactured, which came from this statement, which was 116,630. We put all this together before. And when you add the beginning finished goods inventory plus the cost of goods that you've manufactured, this gives you the goods that you had available to sell, which is 133,630. If you subtract off the ending finished goods inventory of 22,500, which came from the list over here, 22,500, then you end up getting the cost of goods sold, which is 111,130, and you're finished. So notice how this one line item, cost of goods manufactured of 116,630, can be really considered a separate statement. So this is a separate statement. The cost of goods sold is a line item within an income statement, and here's how you do the calculation for it for a manufacturer.